Welcome to another biblically based look into today's news from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now here's Mike Bain.
They're at it again, and it's distracting from the 2022 World Football Cup. Why can't sports people and athletes just play sport without trying to be politically correct or show that they're woke? Now, it may be unpopular for me to say that using Qatar as a country was a great idea. My reason for saying it is because it certainly has brought out everything which is wrong in sport today. Now, let me give you a little bit of background into Qatar, as it's important. First up, Qatar is a Muslim country, which means that their customs and laws are different from ours. Now, while we may disagree with them on their treatment of women, homosexuality and the practice of Sharia law, we have the right to make our overtures that we don't agree. When FIFA, the governing body of the game, accepted Qatar to host the world event, if countries were opposed to supporting a stand against the beliefs and actions of Qatar, then would have been the time to make the decision. It would not be the first time that nations have boycotted sporting events. Back in 1976, in an unprecedented act of solidarity, the black nations of Africa boycotted the Montreal Olympic Games because New Zealand were competing, as the All Blacks were also playing the Springboks in South Africa. 4 years later, there was a mass withdrawal from the nations from the 1980 Moscow Olympics. Then, in the early 80s, New Zealand cancelled an All Black tour to South Africa. In sport, who misses out when countries take a stand? It's the athletes, the officials, the fans, and the country. Now, that may seem a simplified comment, but it is true. Now, moving on to this century, we now have athletes and sports teams still competing, but becoming more vocal. Two of the current All Black squad, Brad Weber and TJ Perenara, voiced their support for gay rights in this country during the marriage debate. Theirs were statements reported in the press, and the individuals, well, they were entitled to make the statements they made. A few years later, an opposing voice to theirs saw the Australian rugby star Israel Folau vilified, doing the same thing that Weber and Perenara had done, but his voice was in opposition to theirs. Now, recently, we've seen sports teams taking the knee in opposition to racism following the death of American George Floyd. Now, taking the knee is nothing new. If you look back at test matches between South Africa and the All Blacks, the Springboks will gather and usually take a knee at the end of the match, and some individual All Blacks will do the same. Not to protest, but give praise to the God that they're serving. Taking a knee has always been as a sign of respect. It was deployed as a sign of deference and respect. People today take a knee, or another word for this is genuflect, before queens and kings and altars. Men will often and are expected to go down on one knee during a proposal of marriage. And some parents, well, they'll just go down on a knee to get down to a child's level. But realistically, we do it to show reverence and respect. Now back to the World Football Cup. There is an expectation of respect from the host, just the same as an individual who comes into your home. Qatar deserves to be treated the same, whether you disagree with their culture or not. Now, personally, I disagree with the use of foul language. But would I, as a host, accept someone with an opposite viewpoint to come into my home and tell me I'm wrong, and then open their mouths and let rip with profanity in front of me? I don't think so. The points I want to make are simple. Members of sports teams which accept invitations to play in a tournament have a choice to compete in the country who is hosting it. All Black captain Graham Morey from the 80s made himself unavailable back in 1981 to play against the touring Springboks because of its apartheid policy and because of the harm such a tour could cause to New Zealand. Sports people have a choice to accept or decline. They cannot and should not be hypocritical and go and be insulting to the nation by protest. Another is this: we have seen many teams making a stand by kneeling because they're opposed to racism. Now, I'm concerned, like everything which we do, is railroaded into something it's not. Taking a knee, as I've explained, is an act of respect or worship. It's not and should not be an action of protest. Now, some may call me naive, but I've been around long enough to see hypocrisy at all levels. And I'm calling out the players and the fans of this World Cup. Qatar is a Muslim country. Going down on one knee or wearing an armband in support of the LGBTQ plus brigade won't make one iota of a difference. Their actions are for show, meaningless and hypocritical. Yes, look, we all agree with the sentiment Black Lives Matter, but ask yourself what, if anything, has changed from the time in 2016 when the San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel and protest about the police treatment of George Floyd. If we're bending a leg, let's do it for the right reason, to reflect our homage and respect to those who deserve it. For Christians, that is God Almighty, and there are many, many reasons why we should do so on any particular day. There are times during protest when a knee should be taken, as depicted in this image from the civil rights era. We certainly should take a knee to petition God for his forgiveness for our wrongdoing. We should take to both our knees when praying for this country. We should take to our knees to thank God for the life that he gives us. And we most certainly must take to our knees to give praise to our Creator. Now, I'm asking you to take a moment to reflect on the reasons why sports people protest in this way and yet still play against rivals and countries who treat others badly. You know, we can reflect upon the hypocrisy of the actions by teams in the World Football Club. Are they there to play a game or make a political statement? Taking a knee, wearing an armband in Qatar is virtue signalling. And if they expect the Islamic regime to take notice, man, are they dreaming. The world is different. We must allow for those differences. I agree. I'm not a fan of Sharia law and certainly not a fan of the abuses of women or racism. But it's their country. We as a nation can, through official channels, have a say, but until we or any other country is perfect, we should reflect on Jesus' words when questioned by the Pharisees regarding to the stoning of a prostitute. Jesus said there, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her."
Thank you for watching. You can see more podcasts like this by subscribing to Christian Voice New Zealand. For more information about our work, or if you're moved to donate, jump online to our webpage, christianvoicenewzealand.com.